This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off since we're right on time. Welcome to session 2 of our forum on student members and chapters. This would have been a forum that we would have held at PLW if we had met physically, but once that event went virtual, we decoupled and we didn't want to try to recreate a virtual all-day meeting just from everybody's time and attention. So we broke it apart into 3 one-hour sessions to still try to get some feedback. We have been approved to have this be an annual convening. So next year, assuming we go back to being physical, we will have another forum on student members and chapters at PLW in 2021. So this gives us a good chance once a year at least to have a big gathering of all of the relevant leaders within the society that impact our students and our student chapters and make sure that we're on the right track. This conversation is being conducted on behalf of the College Outreach Community of Interest. So I just want to give Ann McMillan, our chair, a moment to say hello and welcome everyone.
Thanks, Betty. Hi, everyone. I'm Ann McMillan, and I am the chair of the College Outreach CoY. Thank you all for taking the time to be part of the session today. And if you were part of yesterday's session or tomorrow, we appreciate you attending and taking time out of your day to be part of this ongoing discussion, and hopefully we'll figure out some new solutions too. And information. So if you have anything that you think of after the sessions or in between or any other time, please feel free to always reach out to me and send me any ideas or suggestions you may have. The point of contact information for the College Outreach CoY leadership team is on the last page of the slides, and also it is on the College Outreach part of the SAME website. So if you need to find us, that's where our info is. And also if you don't know who you want to talk to, send me an email and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. So thank you everybody for a great discussion yesterday. Hopefully we'll continue on to the topics that we'd like to cover today. And again, thanks to Eddie for helping put this together. We're trying to use our resources and not reinvent the wheel as we work on the STEM pipeline with K through 12, camp, college outreach, young members, and onward into membership in SAME. And so thank you to everybody who's been here, and let's get started and start going through all the slides.
Awesome. Thanks, Ann. So the format is this is meant to get some feedback from everybody. We do have 2 moderators that will be helping us with the discussion at the end. Mike Scarano, who serves as the senior student chapter mentor on the College Outreach leadership team, and Ron Welch from the Charleston Post. Mike's with the New York City Post, and Ron with the Charleston Post, who serves as the senior student chapter faculty advisor on the leadership team. So they'll be helping us with some of the discussions at the end. Objectives, we're going to review some elements of the student chapter guidance manual just to make sure everybody's on the same page with roles and responsibilities. Through the discussion, we do want to get some feedback from folks that are on the call on what's working for you, what hasn't been working for you, where do you see challenges. We are trying to set ourselves up as your main resource, both through Mike and Ron within their positions, but also as a community of interest that supports our network of student chapters. So any of that kind of feedback, please make sure that you put that out there. Oh. And then obviously we want to record that, note any best practices that we should be identifying and report all of this back to the membership in some way. So there'll be some follow-up coming out of this. What's driving this is really, there's an entire goal in our strategic plan that relates to this work and helps frame the scope of the college outreach community of interest. We're here to inspire, encourage, and enable youth to pursue STEM careers. We're in a particular unique position in their academic formation because we're where they're starting to make decisions about future careers, but also how that's reflected in their academic choices and in their commitment to their academic pursuits, but also all the things that they get exposed to while they're in school that can help give them a leg up. And we as a society, we have a category of student members that is designed to be that target audience for any work done under this goal. So that's what's framing us at the moment, is goal 4 of the strategic plan. So I'll just begin by getting us all on the same page with where we are, and then we'll open it up for discussion. Feel free to throw in any comments in the chat of questions you have on the way that you want us to address, but there'll be a time at the end for open questions as well. Student chapters is where we start providing that next level of engagement with our undergraduate students. And we've been careful about making sure that student chapters aren't viewed as just four-year college type entities. I like to refer to these efforts as post-high school or post-secondary school because it could be two-year community colleges, it could be trade schools, any activity that's capturing a student beyond high school years would fit within the landscape of what we're talking about. But the chapters provide that next level of engagement and opportunity for our student members to gain experience, skills, and awareness before they enter the professional world. So the purpose of the student chapters is there's benefits in identifying why a student chapter exists in your particular area. You should be thinking about what is the benefit to SAME, and in your case, your post would fills that role as well in helping to develop leaders and producing STEM professionals. I think one of the things that we want to make sure that we're investing in is that these aren't administrative relationships. These are programmatic relationships. There is an audience there that needs to be engaged, and we as posts and as a national office need to have a sense of what value they bring to us in engaging them in that way. And then similar for the same way any member makes a value judgment about participating in us, there needs to be benefit to the students in wanting to be a part of an SAME student member or participating in a student chapter. Some of the very top level benefits that we bring to students is any professional development that they have access to, networking that they would get exposed to, and workforce training. We should be seen as an inside track. They should know what the different expertise that's held within the post, what are the kinds of industries that the posts are involved in, that they would have an inside track in connecting to. And that's where we hope between those two, that's where the total picture of value for establishing a student chapter comes from. Student Chapters 101, I think that the very key message that I hope to reinforce here is that the success of a student chapter really does depend on the investments of the sponsoring post. One of the first meetings I went to when I started my position was visiting the George Mason chapter. And it was interesting for them to be asking me questions about things that they were expecting from national that were really resources and aspects that they needed to be getting from their post. And I know there's a turnover, all that is something that we're always challenged with. But I was mentioning earlier on, one of the bigger long-term benefits of these kinds of conversations is that we have more people that want to stay involved, both maintaining their roles as mentors, student leaders that want to continue to be a leader as their years progress, and then that there's leaders waiting in the wings that are ready to take over because they don't want to lose any momentum. And that gets back to that value. If there's value to the post and value to the students, that then creates the momentum to make sure that the relationship continues to flourish and our student chapters continue to stay active. Posts help our student chapters support our mission. If our strategic plan says that we have a goal to keep students on a STEM path and eventually put them in a position for a STEM degree, or excuse me, a STEM career, then we are the infrastructure that helps that to happen. So in thinking about the mission and vision of the student chapters, they should have some sense of purpose for why they are doing what they're doing as kind of the actionable part of these relationships. But the intent is that the chapters are student-led. These aren't committees within a post. They are meant to have their own governance and are encouraged to have that leadership commitment as well. But it is within the post scope to have a sense of where they are at any given time as far as how well they're organized, how well they're meeting, do they feel like they have a sense of purpose. But the responsibility for the governing and actioning of the chapter falls on the students. We currently have, this is actually updated since I made this slide this past week. We're now up to 36 chapters. One of the issues that we had is when I started, I think we were listing over 60 some odd chapters in our on our Find a Post list. And that ended up being more a product of a lot of conversations of intent to produce a chapter. We had instances where we had a good group that was interested, there was some good conversations happening, but then the post or the chapter would drop off, and year after year, a lot of those just stayed on our lists. So last year we cleaned the slate. We started from scratch. We instituted a chapter reporting process that had already existed, but now we were using that as our main marker for actually detailing where and where there's a post and how it's functioning. So this is our current list right now. We do have one more to add that I just got their student status report. They are all listed on the Find a Post drop-down menu. We currently only list the mentor point of contact because it's our website and the mentors are the SAME part of the equation. Those are the contacts that we felt the public would be more, should be contacting versus the students or the faculty advisors directly. But for now, that's the list. One of the things that, let me see where I am on what's next before I get ahead of myself. One of the things we talked about yesterday is creating more engagement opportunities with student members in the posts. And one of the suggestions that came up was adding a board position for students on post boards. There could be an opportunity, for example, a post could say the student chapter president is an automatic board position. It could be a non-voting position if that's a take, but there are ways to make this a more formal and interactive arrangement between the post and the student chapter. Eventually, my big picture plan is that we would have an entire page devoted to student chapters with resources. It would highlight all the posts that are sponsoring. It would create a space for all of the chapters to have their logos. I know that some chapters do their own logos. So that's where, once we get a handle on the data behind these student chapters, which I think we're on a good pace now, the next step would be to increase the visibility and highlight this as an asset to the entire membership. Right now, for example, I only know of a couple of posts that have their student members or that have any sort of branding or presence of their student chapter on their post website. So one of the things we've discussed is, can we get to a point where posts are, as they redo their website or investing in it, have a separate tab that's just devoted for their student chapter. It's somewhat administrative, but it also ensures that that information is consistently updated. It does add some liability in needing to update, keep that information up to date. But again, these relationships shouldn't be static and administrative. They should be programmatic, and I think that would help down the road. But we work on your pace and your capacity, so that's something that's more of a target at the moment. I'm looking at comments here. Faculty members are very busy and won't improve the emergence continuation of online instruction.
There's some chat about faculty sponsors not being very actively engaged.
Well, Yeah, that's a good, I mean, I definitely know that we're dealing with some realities here. Well, let me get down further on the slides because we'll talk about the faculty advisor positions as described in the manual. And then we can talk about the realities that we're dealing with in relation to that. So to start though, going through some of the elements of the guidance manual, we did just update it. We went through the college outreach CoY. We went through and there were references to young members, and now they've transitioned to young professionals. Some of the just references needed to be updated, points of contacts, that kind of thing. So we do have, actually I haven't posted it yet, but we will have a new manual posted on the website this week that you can take a look at. And I'll follow up this meeting with, by sending it out to everybody. But essentially the two very top level requirements are, and once a chapter has been set up, a post responsibility is to provide the financial backing that they might need, any infrastructure support that a chapter might need, and then having an assigned chapter mentor that is the main point of contact within the post for that chapter. All the student leaders should know who their chapter mentor is. They should know how to engage them, how to bring issues up to the post for consideration, any requests. And so both of these aspects should be very clear to your chapters. Diving in a little deeper on some of the different roles. So the mentor is when a chapter gets instituted, one of the things they have to identify is a mentor as part of their application to make sure that the post is committed and invested in that. For the mentor, a lot of their scope looks at how well the chapter is operating. What kind of programs are they working on that they might need assistance with? In some cases, it's being responsive. In other cases, it's you're guiding them towards different types of activities. This is where it'd be great that if there was some overlap in what the post is involved in. One of the examples we've talked about in the past would be, it would be great if the student chapters were seen as assets to sustaining members that need research done on any particular topics. If we could start getting student members involved in the work of our sustaining members, so that they're beyond internships, or if they lead to internships, there's opportunities here to connect students as human resources to posts and sustaining member firms, agencies, to do legwork and to do some of the R&D that might be needed. And it helps both get the work done, but also puts the students in a professional role that they could get more exposure to. Also recognition, just the ongoing, who the folks are, the role, the impact that having student chapters have, and the leadership that leads to that impact. So being able to recognize those individuals at the post level. And then also a plan to transition student members to, this should be young professional CoY, sorry. But we have a transition point that we represent as they graduate. Right now, our current policy is student members stay a student for 6 months after they graduate. If they have not upscaled to a professional level category, then their member account becomes inactive. Student membership is free, and we want to be in a position to recruit as many of members as we can because of that, because we provide it in kind. But the goal is that these folks choose and find value in continuing to be a professional member. I will say that our metrics are not numbers based. We're not here to add to the number of fee-paying members. What we're here to do is add to the number of people that are able to take advantage of SAME as a professional society. And if we're not working to transition student members, then we're investing in them and not really taking advantage of when we might see a return on that investment. Faculty advisors, this is where there is definitely some realism that comes in, and who these people are. I understand in a lot of cases the faculty advisor is really more of an administrative point of contact. They're not programmatically connected to the chapter. They maybe have administrative responsibilities across all different, from club sports to other societies to just straight up student groups. So some of this is grain of salt kind of observations, but we should be highlighting, and I don't think I've ever seen it anywhere, that faculty advisors get free membership during their term as faculty advisor. So for some, that could be a benefit to highlight. If as we're going back to physical meetings, being able to convene faculty advisors is something we've talked about. College Outreach is still trying to figure out how to be a resource for academia, and faculty advisors give us a sub-community within academia to focus on. But here, I think what we're looking at is the faculty advisor would be the person that connects the student chapter to all the internal institutional resources they have available to them, how to work within the school systems that house them, connecting to school resources. I know in some cases the mentor is also on faculty, but isn't technically the faculty advisor. So there could be some overlap in what a mentor might be on the lookout for. But we do hope that faculty advisors are at the minimum understanding that these are the type of questions that a chapter may come to them, and hopefully they're in a position to answer it.
Hey, Eddie, how many
Yep.
student chapters do we have? I'm sorry, this is Tiffany Castricone.
Oh, that's okay. We're at about 36 right now.
36. I feel like we should try to, like we were talking about yesterday, as far as like having incentive for the students. I feel like we should have like some sort of incentive for the faculty advisor too. Like we give them some sort of like gift card or some sort of like, I don't know, some sort of like incentive to be like, thank you for, doing this outside of your classroom kind of thing. Because most of the time they're not getting paid extra to be your faculty, the faculty advisor for this. So it might be, and if we only have like 36 at the time, or don't have like 1,000, and we might be able to, or encourage the post to like have some sort of, I don't know, incentive for the faculty advisor, like even just a thank you card with, I don't know, a Starbucks gift card or something like that. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's more of a thankless job and they need to be kind of more appreciated.
Yeah, and I would definitely, here, let me go back to, I'm taking notes on another page that I just forgot about since I'm speaking, but let me document that, because I am weary about incentives across the board, because as a national office, I don't want my budget to be gift cards for faculty advisors, gift card for mentors, gift cards for post president, for the student chapter presidents. But I agree there needs to be an incentive for them to want to be involved. Dave mentioned he wasn't aware about the faculty advisor in-kind membership. So at a minimum, that's something that we should be highlighting, and it's something that I need to figure out how to promote that on our website so that you all have that as a talking point. But we've also talked about budgeting for a faculty advisor meeting, and this would fit somewhat more on our strategy to engage academia, but as part of that, having an annual meeting like we do for mentors at PLW to talk more specifically about the needs of academia. So, if they know.
Yeah, something like that sounds good too. I just, it was one of those things where I was like, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, as I said, it's sort of a thankless job. So we needed to find a way to kind of, but I also didn't know that they got free membership either. So that's a good thing.
Well, and to be honest, I don't know how it gets implemented. Now that we've got the reports in place and we now have a consistent way of acknowledging or recording when who the faculty advisors are, that's something that I would need to work with memberships, so that every time a faculty advisor gets reported to us, they're going to get a member record created for them and be sent a member welcome letter. We would just need to be make sure that we track their term. One of the other things when we were cleaning up the database we found is that we still had faculty advisors for chapters that hadn't existed for 10, 15 years, but there's no process of taking somebody off of our database. A side note, we are going to be getting a new member database, hopefully in 2021. And I've submitted a number of different workflows related to my COIs that I want to make sure get built into the parameters of that whatever new system we get. One of which is having roles be able to be easily identifiable and filtered and changed. And the other piece is having records for chapters separate from school records, so that at George Mason, for example, we would have a record for George Mason and any members affiliated with George Mason, but that record would be separate from our student chapter at George Mason. Right now, everything is mixed. If I pull a list of George Mason, it gives me everything. So a lot of our systems just have not been useful to us. But yeah, those are the kind of things that we want to follow up with and say, okay, we need to promote the faculty advisor free membership more. You know, we should have a flyer that every faculty advisor gets that highlights our national conferences. They'd still have to pay, but I think there is a academic registration fee for our conferences, so that can also be promoted as a benefit. But yeah, that's kind of where we are with faculty advisors. Let me see, shows. All right, David. Yeah, you're highlighting some details that, yeah, those are the kind of things we definitely need to revamp. It's just been a matter of not getting it on a to-do list and having somebody focused on it. So there'll be a lot more cleanup there to do. All right, I mentioned early that the goal is, though, to have the chapters be student-led, student-organized, student-governed. So in the application process, every chapter would set up a charter that would define, you know, their existence as a part of SAME. In that, it should detail how they're going to organize, how they're going to meet, the officers that they're going to support. That would be the next level of detail I'd like to have in our system. We have student members recorded, but we don't have right now an ability for a student member that's a treasurer at a particular student chapter to be designated. So I need to have that be part of the new database as well. Semi-annual reporting that I'll mention in a second, and continuity of leadership. You know, where we've struggled is when we lose top leadership and then the chapter stays on the books on paper with no real activity. With everything going on at the post, there's really, you know, no closing of the loop there to get them back on track. So we end up with chapters just sitting idle. That's the kind of thing.
Well, Eddie,
oh, go ahead.
it might be kind of nice if, you know how like we have to turn in an annual report. Maybe it's at the bottom of the annual report, you know, like who's your student chapter leader and the mentor. And so every year they have to fill out the leader and the mentor, you know, for the next year.
Yes, and actually we are doing it now twice a year. That is the exact process that we're going to be looking at. It's still not perfect because we're actually using it as a way of rebuilding the lists, but we don't have it yet to the point where if we didn't get one on any particular term, we wouldn't remove somebody yet. I need to be able to audit those reports to see who didn't supply one and be able to follow up with them before we would start removing folks from the list. But that is its intention, is that's when we know the leaders that are remaining on. If we run a report and we haven't gotten one from you in the last 6 months to a year, then, you know, potentially your chapter would be removed from the lists. And that gets to that last piece, is maintaining SAME and post membership status. It's not just knowing that the chapter exists, what work they're doing, but it's also encouraging the chapter student members to make sure they are in the student membership database, that they have logged in and registered as student members. I know West Point, Jonathan Sheehan takes them, or Nathaniel Sheehan takes his roster and he inputs them in himself. It creates a member record for them and they get their member correspondence directly. All he's doing is doing the data entry. but he wants to make sure every time they recruit that his students, if we leave it up to the students, sometimes that's where we lose them, is having them actually physically sign up. There is a link for student members that they would use that creates a student account for them. It's tied to their graduation date. So like I said, at 6 months after the graduation date, they would go inactive. But until then, they get all the student member benefits available to them. And then I had just mentioned this, but May 1st and December 1st of each year are when we hope to get student status reports. We expect we're likely only going to be getting them when there's changes, but because students graduate, we do think that we would be getting them more often than less. Even if it's once a year, we do hope to get a status report to maintain, to keep our records up to date. Right now, it is just POC related. It's not a report on chapter activities. So, I think our next level is to try to figure out, maybe working with the mentors, how to get an ongoing report or a sense of when chapters are doing great things that we should be aware of. That's why I want to have that chapter page created so that we can aggregate chapter announcements, chapter highlights, all in one location. Joseph Kessler, yep, from San Antonio, says we bring a laptop to all our events in order to enroll new members to SAME through SAME and the UTSA portal. Yeah, so I was down in San Antonio and had the pleasure of going to one of their big barbecue recruitment events, which, barbecue doesn't even start to give a sense of the scale of this event. They get sustaining member firms to camp out all night doing a barbecue cook-off at a fairgrounds that they have. And I think, Joseph, how many do you have? About 20 sustaining member firms that do this? Are you on?
I want to say it's closer to 30. There's quite
30?
a few people.
And when I saw it, I was really surprised to see it and not having heard about it. And obviously there's some uniqueness to Texas and being able to pull that off. But as an event, you've got 30 sustaining member firms investing in students, interacting with students. There's a lot of loops being created there. And then they're signing people up to be SAME members. So we're adding to the membership roster, we're adding to the chapter roster, and the families are there too. So all of a sudden SAME becomes a community partner in hosting this event for all of their families, since UTSA draws a lot from the local community. So those are the kind of things that I think, what is your version of that? Clam bakes, taco sales, or, there's tons of things that we can do that are more than just putting in an application, within reason, obviously. Okay. So that's it on the, kind of the getting us all on the same page with student chapters. Hopefully not all of this was a surprise. I think we're already identifying things that we do need to reinforce as far as messaging. Between Mike and Ron, we've set their positions up so that Ron would be the main point of contact for faculty advisors, and Mike would be the main point of contact for chapter mentors. We're hoping to get into a regular rhythm now that as we meet as a leadership team, if there's things that you all should know about, that you would be hearing it from them as your main points of contact. And if you have questions or want to get on an agenda or have things you want the COI to consider or investigate, that's, obviously I'm always at your disposal as well, but we do want you to have folks on the leadership team that are specifically set up to be your point of contact. So I am done with the 101s, and now I'm going to turn it over to Mike and Ron to open this up for discussion.
Yeah, before we get into any of the best practices, the first thing we wanted to do was to thank you all for being here today and taking time out of your schedule. The second is hopefully you've looked at the most recent guidance manual and also as well as the charter for the COI. We would love to have any comments you have on either one of those two documents. And if you want to share right now, we'll hold for a minute or so, see if there was something in there that's missing or something that needs to be adjusted based upon your interaction with those two documents. Because again, the COI is here to support what we're doing in the chapters, and of course the guidance manuals to help students and mentors and advisors understand what their roles are in this overall opportunity that we have to engage these students and hopefully help develop them to become strong future members of SAME and the engineering community at large. So any comments? And Eddie, while we're waiting on that, is there a Facebook page? Do we have a Facebook page?
There isn't one for student chapters in general. I don't know of any chapters themselves that have their own Facebook page. I think Facebook has been kind of a wild west of who's got what from at the post level. So doesn't mean there couldn't be one. We just haven't done anything coordinated out of the national office. But we could.
Okay, great. So I know that at my school here, the Citadel, we have a Facebook page. We do Snapchat. We have a number of different things that we have our communication person feeding stuff into, but that's something we can consider. So any input on the guidance manual? Okay, any input on the COI charter? I know both of these are things that Ann would like to hear input on.
This is Dave Packard, and of course I can never stand silence. those pregnant pauses, and I apologize. I wasn't aware of the guidance manual. I remember we used to have an operations manual or something. What's the date on this guidance manual, and is that something that can be added to the cover? Because this was kind of news to me.
Yeah, go ahead, Eddie.
Well, my understanding is I think it is the same ops manual you're talking about.
Okay, I haven't looked through it in detail, but
it has been updated. It has been reorganized in some ways, and I think there's a lot more information in there than it was a couple of years ago, Dave. So I would encourage you, all of you, since we don't have any input right now, go ahead and look at it and provide that input to us, so that if we see something and others are, because both myself and Mike will be reaching out to academic advisors as well as mentors and try to keep that conversation going, because this is a living document. So, okay, if Eddie,
Ron,
yeah,
this is Dick Cohant. We already send in our comments from the San Antonio Post.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah,
and I did
incorporate.
Yeah, thank you for those. That was very helpful.
Yeah. I am showing the.
Sorry, Eddie?
Okay.
Yeah, on the college outreach COI page, which I'm showing here, you can see we've got the application, the template for the charter, and the guidance manual. So we do have a more recent version. As soon as this call ends, I'll upload the version that we just came up with, and we can always take comments on it.
Eddie, I owe you 2 typos that I saw in it, so I'll send those immediately so that you can make them before you post. Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, so let's go back to that slide. What we'd like to do is a brainstorming session. Again, Nick, if we have a quiet point in there, Mike's ready to post something out there to get the conversation even further along. But how does your post support any one of these 4? We're waiting for your input.
This is Patrick Bass out at the Citadel. For us, we typically have the members from the Charleston Post come to the student chapter and do a speed mentoring session. That's usually the first event that we have each year, and that's been great for energizing the chapter and getting them going for follow-on events in a given semester.
And so what he's talking about, that is it's like speed dating. But instead you're moving the mentor from spot to spot, right, and they're talking to 3 to 4 students at a time. Not sure how we're going to do it this fall, but I think we can still do it in a Zoom session. It won't be as good, but in a Zoom session with breakout sessions inside the Zoom and keep moving the mentors from spot to spot to spot. So since Patrick works for me, I'm looking forward to seeing that happen. Right, Patrick?
It's a great idea you have, sir.
We'll see how it turns out. But what I've challenged all of my people that are in charge of clubs is let's do the same thing we've done in the past. Let's move them and use this chaos to see how we can do it better and different. But we're not going to stop doing the engagement of the students. So thank you, Patrick. That's a great idea, speed mentoring.
Okay, so this is Dave Packard again. And so at the universities of Nebraska, Lincoln, and Omaha, we have student chapters at both of them. And last year we had kind of a challenge in that, we had some discontinuity of student successors to the previous leadership. And so what we find is that there are evolving requirements. I mean, as universities have become more inundated with more organizations, engineering, architecture, whatever, it's been a challenge to kind of keep up with all of the bureaucracy within the universities. So one of the challenges we face is that, just being able to reach out but one of the things that I've always extolled is the fact that first of all, we have to overcome the M word, So we really have to kind of market ourselves and get out there and have a champion, usually in the student, who can convince people of the value of the organization. The other thing is, I like the idea of connecting with other professional engineering societies. I always like to promote the idea of approaching not just engineering students. I mean, there's a large pool of engineering students, and not just ROTC students, because few of them have any interest in engineering at all. But also to architecture, interior design, business administration, of all things, because what are we if not an organization of business development people? And so, there are a lot of people, a lot of untapped opportunities. We do conduct a number of, we stand ready to give any kind of a webinar or a presentation to the students on any topic at all. We have lots of technical folks that can do that. We also engage actively in eWeek. So eWeek is a big deal for us. So that gives us a presence that we don't otherwise have. But part of the challenge is, again, going back to the initial weeks of school. You have to be poised to prepare or to participate in these kind of they have enrollment opportunities, activities to promote student organization. So a lot of it, I mean, it's been complicated by the current situation, but and one of the things too, you say, what more do student chapters need? I think one of the things they need is some guidance as far as how to brand themselves, as was stated earlier. And one of the things we've done is create banners that can be set outside of rooms where meetings are being held, or at a table where where the post or where the student chapter is set up on an organization day. So
thanks, Dave.
Thank
Perfect. Couple points on all that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just letting you know there were a couple of suggestions in the chat box as well from Christina and Susan.
Yeah, I was just going to jump on those. The first is, of course, getting students to connect with the post and have the post see themselves as engaging those students. One of the things Mike has on his list when we do show it is having the post invite the students every meeting and have a different group of students coming to engage with the actual post. Another one is to encourage all those students to apply for the scholarship. And our post in the Charleston has one of the 3 they give out every year assigned to go to one of our students at the Citadel. So to encourage them, knowing that there's at least one that's going their way. I think all the things that Dave mentioned are all right on target. One of the things that we're doing is we're ensuring that we're trying to have, now, one of the things Joe Shordell likes to talk about SAME always is that we are an integrator society. And that means that we are trying to bring all the other societies together as we attack and deal with our infrastructure and security of our nation. But we try to do the same thing at our student chapter level, and that is we try to encourage that SAME, you don't have to be military, an engineer, or an American to be part of SAME. As Dave said, you can be in business or whatever. Our idea is that we are bringing them all together to focus in on the key things. And so many of the companies that we invite are those that can have people come for the presentation that can talk a little bit about a project from their perspective: electrical, mechanical, civil, construction, computer, you name it. And by doing that, that brings those students in. And we try to, as Patrick mentioned in the chat, we try to ensure also that we're bringing multiple chapters together to host an event and cross-pollinate that way. So others.
Yeah, hello, this is Terry Watkins from San Antonio. So one of the things I think that we need to show and is the value. We've already hit on a few of those things, scholarships. We started initiated a resume review help writing session here. I've gotten a lot of participation in that. That's something the student chapter asked for, along with some mock interviews. One of the other things that they asked for, in addition to having some of the firms to come and discuss, they will look more into getting some of the younger members who have made that transition, so that they can explain to them, what are the things that were really important in college that they were able to transition into the private sector real well, and then what are some of the things that they wish they had done to kind of bridge them into the private sector.
Absolutely. I think internships, resumes, scholarships, those that transition. We had Boeing come make a presentation, and they brought 10 engineers to do the speed mentoring, as Patrick mentioned. They had a couple that had just transitioned out of college, and one of them was an SAME member. And so that was good to have that conversation and find those opportunities. Others?
Yeah, I just want to add on that. One of the topics that came up yesterday was our virtual student chapter. We're trying to set up as the conduit for professional development, especially online content, now that we're moving towards that more. And topics that came up in our discussion yesterday were interviewing skills, resume writing. So we are trying to be mindful of those kinds of needs and make them available to not just all our students, but things that could be replicated at a post meeting, ideally.
I think it's important that post or chapters think about that. If they have a speaker cancel out on them, have that virtual student chapter on their docket of things that they could possibly switch to, and have that as their meeting that month to keep their students engaged. Others? I like it. I just saw the comment about reaching out to the local community college. That's actually one of my initiatives this year, is to try to get, we've been inviting our local community college to come over and come to our meetings. They're only, I think, about 7 miles away, but have them come onto campus so they start to become more comfortable when they do transfer over to our campus. But I think that's a great one, Stephanie. Wounded Warrior, absolutely. And you'll find a lot on the Wounded Warrior, those that are still doing it, because what Eddie was talking about 2 years ago, you used to have a report, and you had to, if you were going to win a streamer as a chapter, and I hope we'll get back to that, there were 3 items that you had to do. Had to have meetings, you had to have some type of K through 12 activity, and the Wounded Warrior was one of those as well that you were encouraged to do. Our students do a kayak trip with Wounded Warriors down the Kiowa River. So it's a really, really great opportunity, and I think we should all be looking for that for our students. No matter whether they're going to the military, ROTC or not, connecting with our Wounded Warriors is awesome. Okay, at this time, I'm going to have Eddie, would you post what Mike sent to you? And we're just going to allow everybody to read through that and see if that sparks anything else to throw into the chat.
Blow it up a little bit. All right, and then I can tell you to scroll down. So this is Mike Scarano. This is my first time being with the group, and I'm honored to be here. I am the secretary of the New York City Post. I kind of sideline as a strong interactor with our West Point Post, which has been West Point student chapter, which has been our student chapter since the West Point Post that used to exist disbanded probably about 10 or 12 years ago. And funny that you know we're talking about all these things that are in the COI guidelines. What you're about to see in front of you are things that we've been doing probably for the last 5 to 10 years that we just started doing without any guidance whatsoever. So I'm finding it very rewarding to see that you know we've been doing stuff that pretty well fits the society guidelines. So let me go through it, tell you what we've been doing, see if it makes sense for you. This was only meant to be a primer. Obviously, we're all in different geographic areas. Things that work in New York may not work in Panama City. On the other hand, there may be things that will work. To set you up with the logistics, New York City is about 1 hour's drive from West Point. West Point lies due north of New York City by about 30 or 35 miles. So here are the things that we've been doing, as long as I can remember. For one thing, the student chapter has a permanent representation on the New York City Post Board of Direction. So we actually have on the Post proper a chapter committee. We call it the West Point Affairs Committee. So that individual attends all Board of Directors meetings, and we're always looking at ways to facilitate the relationship. The Young Members Committee of our Post
Mike, is that
is
a voting member?
a voting member. Yes, that is a
Great.
voting member. And the way we operate, our directors are nominated for 3-year terms, and they are elected for 3-year terms. So yes, he or she is a voting member for a 3-year term. We also have a Young Members Committee, a voting member of the Board of Direction, and there's a natural interaction between the young members and our student chapter. We hold an annual event, very well attended. It's an engineers dinner held at West Point. The planning and execution of that dinner is done jointly by the Post's Young Members Committee and the student chapter, and it's always a huge success. A lot of old friends show up. We've had the chief of engineers a couple of times in the past. We usually get a really high-powered speaker, and it's a fabulous event. We get alumni from across the country that are attending. We provide regular opportunities for the student chapter members to participate in our regular post evening meetings. So we hold 3 main evening meetings. They're held in Midtown Manhattan once we get past COVID at the Harvard Club. At each of our evening meetings, we will have a cadre of 6, 7, or 8 West Point cadets who are escorted by the mentor or a couple of other officers, and they are regular participants in the meeting. Our meetings are typically we typically have a very high-powered guest speaker. They interact with a lot of our regular members. We typically get 75, 80 to 100 people attending our meeting. We try to take advantage of the natural relationships that exist in the area. The Army Corps of Engineers has a district and division, and they're regularly attending our meetings, as well as holding special events for which the chapter may be involved. Harbor inspections. There are a host of meetings with other societies that we meet with together. There's an entity known as the Mid-Hudson Technical Engineering Society. There's an annual event that West Point is represented on. So we do have a natural affinity to joint events with other societies. Scroll up just a little bit more. on that sheet because I didn't open mine. Go up just one more bullet and then we'll have the whole thing. Okay, I think the key to our success, it's a two-way relationship. So the students come down to our meetings. We also go up to West Point, the aforementioned annual dinner. I've been kind of stuck in a bit of a tradition for the last 3 years or so. I've been going up once a year in the early winter, and I guest lecture before a joint event that includes our student chapter as well as the other technical chapters that exist at West Point. And it's been a terrific opportunity for me to highlight some of the things that I'm doing both in my present career at New Jersey Transit as well as in my previous career at the Army Corps of Engineers and some of my overseas adventures. And I usually try to focus in my dissertation on showing them how their military training will be applicable to either a military career or a civilian career, and a lot of the things that are common to both. And I give them live examples from my 2 lives. So basically, these are just things that we've done pragmatically over the years. We never, we didn't look at the COI guidelines and say, oh, let's go and do that. So these were just common sense things that we did that seemed to work for us. It turns out that they seem to all be working pretty well with what we should be doing. Oh yes, let me add the last thing. We do also provide financial support to the student chapter. Now, they don't need money to hold their regular meetings, but we do pay to send a couple of the cadets to the Jet C, to the student leader conference that had been going on. And if there's any particular need, we did sponsor a project management professional series. We paid for a number of cadets who were financially in need with the resources to be able to take a PMP course. So we've got a very, very active and rich and collaborative relationship with the student chapter. And we've been thrilled. And what you don't see here are a lot of the mentoring relationships that grow as a result of the interactions. I haven't captured them all, but whenever there's a gathering of cadets with members of the post, we do get all kinds of interactions, LinkedIn relationships, and things that are going on secondary and tertiary to the primary relationship that we have. So I'll be happy to provide this to everybody, but what I'm hoping to do in my role is reach out to all of you. Something I did some years ago with the Corps of Engineers is to capture the best practices from all of you. If you've got a particular thing that you're doing that really works and it's generating excitement, I'd love to hear about it. And if we see that there are a multiplicity of chapters that are succeeding at the same thing, well, then that might just be something that becomes a general formula for everybody. So that's all I've got for a moment, but I'd love to open it up for any comments, criticisms, thoughts that you guys and gals may have. And forgive my New York accent, by the way. Well, is it good? Does it stink? I tell you what, since nobody's talking, give me a 1 to 5 stars. 1 stinks and 5 is great.
Actually, Mike, I just posted in the chat that I want to turn this, generalize this, make it more of a template and add it to the student chapter guidance manual.
I'm
'Cause I
honored.
think it does present some very tangible recommendations. So I'll do another pass and add this in to the current version we have.
By the way,
So
Andy Bates said 5 stars, but he's a biased observer, so. And
Nice.
let me also mention, we also do joint events with our neighboring New Jersey Post. And there was a joint event that was it about a year ago that the two student chapters, Rowan and West Point, got together for a really, really good event. So we do a
We
lot
did
of,
it 3 years in a row, Mike.
all right, there you
We
go.
did the
See?
whole game. We did football games, everything sports related. And what I tried to do with our Rowan University student chapter is have a huge fundraiser in the spring, because they always talk about, oh, we got to go to West Point. I said, that's not a bad thing. And I said, well, there's the Army Navy game in Philadelphia. So I had this incentive for them to have a fundraiser in the spring so they could attend the Army Navy game. So it didn't
Well,
happen yet, but
my invitation got lost in the mail, Susan.
So I think that takes us right to the end right here. Eddie, back over to you.
And let me
Sure,
say
thank you.
to everybody for the great comments. I appreciate it very much.
Yes, we are just finished on time. These are ongoing conversations. Like I said, every August we hope to have a peak where we will convene everybody. But this does help reinforce the work plan and help us decide where we need to be investing more time and energy within the college outreach community of interest. So thanks everybody for your input. I'll post the updated student chapter guidance manual on the website for folks to take a look at. And then if you have any other questions, the leadership team's contact information will be listed on the slides that I'll post as well for follow-up. So with that, I thank you all. And those of you that can join us, please join us tomorrow for our last session. We're going to be talking about student chapter competitions. We have a new vice chair of competitions on the leadership team. So hope to see you then.
Have
Thanks,
a great
everyone, and
evening, everybody.
You as well.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.